Hey everybody, welcome to The Early Edge, a mentorship podcast for next generation leaders where we share insights we wish we had learned earlier in our careers.
We want to equip you to learn more, grow faster, and thrive in both your work and personal life. I'm Jay.
And I'm Jeff. Let's get into today's episode.
Well, welcome back, everybody. We are pleased today to welcome a guest, Madeline Westfall, to the podcast. She's going to share with us her journey from college into the business world and into entrepreneurship. We think there's going to be some really valuable insights for our audience, elements of her story that will resonate with folks. So Jeff and I are super excited to introduce Madeline. She lives in Nashville, Tennessee. She is a proud graduate of Furman University, go Dins, and
yes,
is founder and lead designer at Madeline Westfall Design. Welcome, Madeline.
Thank you for having me, guys. Good to be here.
We won't have any major formula here other than, I gave you the LinkedIn version of the intro. Maybe would you share with us, if you were out having a coffee, how would you introduce yourself and what you do?
Yes, so I would classify myself as an interdisciplinary designer. So my background is in graphic design, which really includes like print and digital design. But when I first graduated from college, I found myself really interested in the tactile side of things. So I now specialize in signage and something called placemaking, which some people may not be super familiar with, but basically branded spaces, which signage is a huge part of, and took my graphic design background into that kind of physical, tangible world.
Maybe let's build from the beginning, and then you can give us more on who your clients are and what you do and how you carved a business out of that. But maybe let's start with university life. And I think you have a really interesting story about how you landed on a major.
Yes. I think with a lot of young people graduating high school, when you first go to college, you may think you know what you want to do. And I definitely thought I wanted to do something in kind of the creative advertising marketing space. But as you guys mentioned, I went to Furman University, which is a very small liberal arts college. Not a ton of options in terms of specialized majors, but they have a really cool program called the Integrated Curricular Program, which basically is put together so that people like me who don't fall into a liberal arts bucket like business or communications can build their own curriculum, build their own major. So I did a big research project basically pulling majors from other larger schools that had more of what I was interested in doing, which was marketing and design, which culminates into really branding and graphic design. So I was able to actually create my own major my sophomore year by researching and building this paper and presentation to the university saying, at this school, there is a design that has these courses. Furman offers enough of these courses to build an entire major curriculum. And so I created a major called marketing design. So I took classes in the business department, communications department, and art department. So that was a super unique intro into what I started to fall in love with in terms of design. But it also has a common thread with entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Definitely a unique start.
Yeah, well, that's what struck me. You beat me to it. You were 19 years old. And of course, Furman thankfully had the framework for someone to do that. But for you to take the initiative to sort of envision your future, realize that what was offered wasn't quite right. Did you have that initiative on your own? Did you have some guidance or mentorship? How did you take that leap? That seems like that takes some courage.
Yeah, so I had a good crew of teachers around me. The other nice thing about Furman, and this is a perk of a liberal arts school, is there's those required general education classes as a freshman and into your sophomore year. So I got to meet a lot of professors in different departments and also just kind of get my feet wet in a bunch of different departments. So I took a business class freshman year. I think it was like intro to marketing. And I really liked it. But then I also took a typography class and I was like, I really like this too. How do we merge the two? And I was definitely always growing up, I leaned more creative. So I knew that was a big part of it. But if I just wanted to be a business major and go into potentially advertising or communications and go into PR, there wasn't that design element. So I had some people around me in terms of advisors that told me about this integrated curriculum program. And it hadn't really been done by very many people. I think there was like 2 other classmates of mine while I was at Furman that did it. So it wasn't super popular just because I think it did take an extra step of like putting together the research and filling out a ton of different applications and presenting it to the school. But I definitely had an advisor who was like, you know, you should look into this. And they probably advised it to other people. But for me, it struck a chord and was worth doing and taking that extra time to have classes that I actually enjoyed. You know, I just wasn't someone who was wanting to take like the finance side of the business department. I also wasn't good at it. You know, the econ classes, I knew I wasn't going to do well in necessarily. And I knew I could succeed in the design world. But if I wanted to be an art major, I had to take sculpture and art history. And I knew I wasn't good at those things. So definitely have some advice leading me in that direction. But I definitely think it takes like the right person and personality to bite.
Yeah. I love that. You know, gosh, typography class, we could spend the next 30 minutes just talking about serif and sans serif fonts. I don't know how much the audience would really enjoy that. Madeline, what would you say to a lot of our listeners are in their 20s and 30s or in their early years of their career? They've already taken all the courses they're going to take, at least for now, and they've got their degree. What would you say to somebody that maybe did get just the standard marketing degree or the standard finance degree or any typical degree that wants to now kind of do their own thing, and maybe it's a different angle on what they got a degree in? Do you have any insight in how somebody should approach that? Is it just kind of go do what you want to do?
I mean, partially, yes. That's kind of my approach. I've talked to a few like Furman grads or, you know, friends of friends who are entering into the real world and just want some advice. But the biggest thing that I found was like when I graduated and I moved to Nashville, I did not have a job lined up. I just was like, this is what I want to do. And I kind of like cold emailed people that I thought what they were doing was what I would want to be in the realm of. So I think when I talk to young people, my biggest piece of advice is find the people that you kind of want to mirror, not necessarily copy their career, but whose trajectory is something you could see yourself on as well. And just ask questions. I think just like reaching out to people who are doing what you want to be doing and getting advice like this, listening to podcasts like this, and just having those conversations and being open. And for me, it was just having the confidence to say, like, I am, you know, when I graduated, I was 22 years old and moving to a new city. And you don't really have anything to lose at that point other than a little bit of shame if you don't get the job that you apply for. But the right thing eventually comes along. You just have to put boots on the ground and talk to people. I think the other piece is there are programs. So one thing from Furman, they feed you into a program in Atlanta, I believe, and it's called the Portfolio Center. So I was encouraged as a graduate to go build my design portfolio. Essentially, that's also paying for 2 more years of postgraduate programs. And I just was like, I just want to build my portfolio in the real world. So when it comes to someone who's interested in design, I've told a lot of people, just make up fake projects, build their portfolio doing the things that you find interesting. You don't need a class to learn Adobe, InDesign, or Illustrator, these programs that we're using every day. You just need a little bit of motivation and grit and fire to want to do what you're passionate about. And I think a lot of things can be self-taught. Maybe that's not the right word, but if you have the right motivations, I think you can figure it out. Right. The tools are right there. You just have to like be willing to grab them. Right.
And I love something you said, which was to some degree, it's partly based on the people you surround yourself with. And I've always loved the statement that I heard probably 20 years ago, that your friends will determine the quality and direction of your life. And that's true kind of in your personal life and your work life. So I love that. Let's maybe fast forward a little bit to the first early parts of your career and your first job, and then move on to starting the business. What was that first pivot out of college and out of that program like for you?
Yeah, so like I said, I moved to Nashville, didn't have a job lined up. I kind of knew my value, I guess, and knew that I wanted to be in Nashville and knew it was a creative place. And I am not kidding when I say that I cold emailed probably 40 places and just basically said, I'm eager, I'm willing to work. I will do the base level. I have no problem starting out as an administrative assistant, but I think what your company is doing is awesome and I want to be part of it. That was the gist of what I was saying. And I ended up connecting with this very, very small design-based signage studio that was literally just a guy he had graduated from an art school in Australia, and this will get us into a little bit of typography, but he moved to Nashville and started building letters. Like, he was really passionate about letter forms, and so he just started to build them, to learn about them, and it turned into signage for his friends and local businesses, and it kind of blew up. And I basically just emailed at the right time. He had just landed a few big contracts, had never hired an employee, and I was this, really green young graduate who wanted to just do anything hands-on. So that was about 3 or 4 months after I moved to Nashville and was just cold emailing so many people. And I got a job there. I was there for about 5 years. And then I kind of was doing a lot of the work. It was just me and the owner. And he was scaling back, wanting to kind of do different type of work. I was like, I'm doing every aspect of this business as it is right now, from invoicing to the design work to project management to being on site for installs. And I was like, I can do this on my own. So it was interesting timing because I decided, right before I left for holidays in December 2019, I was like, you know what, I'm going to be done after this year and I'm going to start my own. And that was just 3 months before COVID took over the world. I was really fortunate to be able to have created so many relationships at the time of my first job, my first real job, and stay there for 5 years. So I didn't have a bunch of jobs. It didn't bounce around. I basically stayed somewhere for 5 years after graduating and then decided I could do it on my own. I had dabbled in freelance on the side, so I kind of knew how to transition, but it was just time for me to do it all. And I created so many good connections that I still work with today.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to take a pause in your story and just highlight a couple of things that stand out to me. And these are sort of mindset or traits, character traits that I think are critical in any role, especially if you are going the solopreneur route or first job out of college. And, I imagine, Madeline, this is sort of like table stakes for you because, this is just how you operate. But I want to point out there's some unique things that seem to be inherent in you that have helped you navigate this, what could be a pretty scary pathway in college and out of college. One of them is, you said, grit and fire. And I love that. It's a high degree of want to, the willingness to face uncertainty, to have some vision for the future or some vision for how you want it to be different. And then to say, you know what, I'm not going to wait for this to come to me. I'm going to do what I can do to envision this thing and bring it to reality, which is not always common. And the other thing that I think was pretty important is, you fired 40 emails, cold emails, and you said it was sort of right place, right time. Well, the only way you get to capitalize on right place, right time is to be in the place, is to get yourself there.
Right.
And so you did the work, moving took courage, going and presenting to your university to build a major took courage, launching on your own took courage. So I don't want to skip the necessary mindset or traits. And I think a lot of members of our audience are going to be trying to navigate the first job or get into the workforce, or, this job's okay, but it's not great. But am I going to just sit and coast here, or am I going to do something about it?
Right.
And I think you just have such great stories of making bleep happen, which I just love.
Yeah. I think it all does. That too goes back to the support you have around me. I don't want to make it sound easy and sugarcoat that, I just had this clear vision of what I wanted to do, because there was plenty of times of doubt, but mentally, I just told myself I have a very inherent productivity mindset in life in general. And so to me, taking too much time to doubt myself was just a waste of time. That was just my mindset was, well, sitting here isn't going to do anything about it. So I just need to go and start somewhere. And it's funny because I will never forget, I think it was second or third grade. And I had this teacher, and she wrote on the board a quote every morning. I remember vividly the day that she wrote, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step." I truly have lived by that saying and that belief system of you just have to put one foot in front of the other, because don't get me wrong, there were definitely times that I was like, is this going to work out? Am I going to be able to do this on my own? And there's a ton of self-doubt that creeps in. I just think you have to mentally push past it. But part of that is I have great parents who support me, and I have great friends who keep encouraging me along the way that make the personal life aspect of what I come home to worth it. I had a very intentional mindset of also keeping work and personal life very, very separate, which is also part of the entrepreneur spirit to me a little bit, because owning your own business, you're kind of alone on an island. You're kind of everything does fall back to me. There's no employees or other people really to blame anything on. So you have to be, mentally prepared to take on that responsibility. Yeah. And I think having support in your personal life and home life is a huge part of that. One thing I would also tell people that I think are graduating college or are starting out is work is work, and it will end one day and you will retire. But what is left? And I think I always had that in the back of my mind of it's really easy when you're on your own to kind of become this workaholic and to be 100% defined by what you do. I think by keeping that separate and always having this work-life balance is the only way to mentally get yourself prepared for the hard times.
We talked about in an earlier episode, you just got to strap your shoes on, and we've used running analogies, and I love you just got to take the first step. And that's right in line with something we've said about doing anything that's challenging and being intentional about things, is just get started, and then things can happen. You got to kind of have that spark. So I love that.
Totally.
Jay, gosh,
and you can't have ego.
That's right. And also you kind of referred to something, Jay, that's taking me back to something you told me, I don't know, maybe a year ago. We weren't made to waddle. Do you remember saying that?
Oh my gosh. No.
I don't remember what it was in context for. I just remember the comment, we weren't made to waddle.
We made to sprint? I don't know.
I think it was when I was considering starting Red Dog Advisors.
Oh, yeah.
And it was something related to that.
Yeah, so we'll have to dig that back up. I don't remember.
So, Madeline, it's a great point. Take the first step. Don't overthink everything. Just take the first step and get moving. And with motion, comes results.
Yeah. So I want to highlight one other thing about your mindset. I imagine you had no worries, no self-doubt, no fears. It was all 100% going to be perfect, correct?
Oh, absolutely not.
That's what I want. I want our audience to understand that none of it comes worry-free. There will always be risk. And so how did you approach the courage part of this?
Well, again, I think it was having people around me, and I talk to my dad a lot because he's been in business and he's retired now, but I feel like the mindset was always what's the worst that can happen? And that's something that I ask myself a lot in general is give yourself, when I'm thinking about making a big decision, what is worst case scenario and what is best case scenario? And when you really outline those, neither of them are going to happen. It's always going to be something in the middle. So even understanding that best case scenario is probably not going to be the reality, but having that preparation of having thought it through and asking people, again, there's a lot of self-doubt and there's a lot of I can't do it. And the imposter syndrome, that is something that I suffer from still.
We all do.
Especially I'm now 32, but when I started, I was 27 years old, and I had a lot of this isn't normal. Am I am I allowed to do this? But then you figure out that everybody is kind of faking it a little bit. Even if you're completely qualified, even if I had gone to an art school and, had this traditional design background and graduated from college and had all these things, that didn't guarantee me my dream job either. The more you play some scenario in your brain, the more room there is for you to come up with the bad outcomes and the doubt.
And assuming that one of the hardest things when you started the business was just making the firm decision and making that commitment, are there one or two other things that were hard in those first couple years of getting the business started?
A very tangible thing was I am so grateful I get to do the thing that I love to do. So billing people was so uncomfortable for me. And I had to remove myself from it, sending an invoice or asking for a certain rate for a project. It just, again, that imposter syndrome creeped in. So that was really tough. And I had to streamline a lot of those processes and implement systems so that I was taken out of it. And it wasn't personal. It was a lot of just, am I equipped? I know this person's reaching out for me, but I haven't worked with them since I worked at a company. Am I what they're expecting? Again, just that self-doubt, and you have to just push past it. The other thing that outside of my mindset and my personality that comes into play when I first started was just being your own boss. It's not easy. There's a ton of rewards, but having to make my schedule daily and not having someone to report to, there was a lot of times where I was I just want to show up to work and have a list of items I'm supposed to accomplish.
Yeah.
Have someone tell me what to do. Yeah. And so, having to quickly learn that I needed to implement certain systems to remove Madeline, the human being, a little bit and be an employee to myself. I think those were definitely some big learning curves starting out.
That's awesome. What's something that's just an awesome gift about being an entrepreneur? What do you love?
I love that I create my own schedule and can kind of work remotely from wherever. But I also just love the fact that, again, I think there's a lot of people that work to live. I don't remember what the saying is. I guess you either live to work or you work to live. And I live to work because I love what I do. I don't just work because I have to show up every day. Getting to kind of make the rules. I don't have to fall into this specific category of what a design agency, what type of projects they take. If something is interesting to me, I can take that project. There's no one I have to ask and make sure it aligns with the company's goals or, whatever it may be. If it's something that feels good to me, I can say yes. Yeah. There's also an element that doesn't seem like it would be something that I enjoy about being an entrepreneur, maybe necessarily, but I kind of like that it all does fall on me. I've personally had a hard time bringing on employees because I'm very particular in the way that my process works. And I like the way that I can do things. And it's definitely, that's one of those things that I'm actively working on trying to fix because I'm going to need some help here soon.
Yeah.
But there's part of me that likes that it falls on me and there's no one else to take the blame because it holds me really accountable. And I think if I was working, maybe at a larger agency setting or just bigger design studio, it would be easy to pass the blame.
Mm-hmm. Well, your story will resonate with so many people, I think, because it doesn't matter if someone is looking to start a business or they're looking for that next role or they're looking to make any kind of change. To me, the couple of the key takeaways that I hear to reinforce what we've learned from you, Madeline, is first, be intentional and take charge of the future that you want. Think about it. Some people might need to write it down so they can iterate and improve and just tweak it to really think through it. It doesn't have to be something you sit down and do in 10 minutes. It might be something you do over a couple of weeks or a couple of months, but be intentional about the future you want.
Yeah. And I think another one would be make sure that you are intentional and thoughtful about the people in your corner. Who do you have to help support you through this process, to kick you in the pants when you need it, to give you a hug when you need it, to be a sounding board when you need it? And especially for those of us, Jeff and I are solopreneurs also. It's lonely, as you said, and having safe ears to go talk about things with is really important. So that's another one. Jeff, you got another key takeaway?
Take the first step and be okay with learning as you go. We'll talk about the imposter syndrome even more. I know that's come up a couple times in this conversation. You got to make sure you don't feel like you have to know it all the minute you take that first step. Chances are you don't know as much as you need to, and you just got to commit, take the first step, and be willing to learn and try and fail and keep going.
Yeah. So, Madeline, we started with the how would you introduce yourself? Now, as we bring this episode to a close, what parting words would you have for those you're mentoring? I know you do some mentoring of design students, and for the rest of our audience, what are your parting words that you would give to encourage others who are launching into their careers?
Yeah, I mean, a big thing that you guys just said is don't be afraid to fail, because it's inevitable. You're not going to nail it every single time, but also just get out there. Just like figure out what you want. And again, whether that's writing it down or creating a vision board. If you're a visual person like me, I'll put things and I'll save it as my screensaver on my phone or my computer, just things that I want to accomplish. And but don't put yourself on a timeline. Just like have things open-ended and just know that you have a ton of time, especially if you're a listener of this podcast, you're a young professional, maybe a recent grad, you've got a ton of time. So you don't want to lock in something that you're miserable at doing. This is something that you are going to hopefully do for the rest of your life or for a long part of it. So figure out what that is and just go for it. Don't be afraid to fail and yeah, get people in your corner. And I think another thing that I want to add about having a support system is it's really important to have the support system in your personal life, but even more so, I think professional relationships that you can have that feel non-competitive, I think is also really important so that you can keep kind of that work-life balance and you have the people that are in your industry, kind of in your lane that understand the language of what you do, be sounding boards and be resources for you along the way.
Yeah, input and feedback and different perspectives really shapes things and improves things. We're going to wrap up. Last question I have for you is, what's your favorite Adobe Creative Suite app?
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, gosh.
Adobe nerds, look out.
Gosh. I mean, I work in Illustrator 90% of the time.
Sure.
So probably Adobe Illustrator. I use Illustrator and InDesign almost all day, every day, mostly Illustrator. So I would say that one.
All right. Good stuff. Well, that's your Early Edge for the week, Madeline. We really appreciate your time and sharing your perspectives and some of those things that you encountered early in your career. And we hope these tips and bits of advice will really give our audience things to think about and things to apply in their own lives.
Thank you, Madeline.
Yes. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to The Early Edge, a mentorship podcast for next generation leaders. If you have feedback or would like to submit questions or a topic idea, email us at earlyedge@reddogadvisors.com
or earlyedge@altaimpact.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please follow, subscribe, rate, and review. See you next time.